of Chatham Christian School, we all just want to congratulate Rotary again once more on your 100-year anniversary. And thank you for the bursaries. It will definitely help us funding with education or for the schooling. And will help to enable us to be next generation, to further the future, and to help others just in a Rotary way.
Well, Joya, thank you very much. And your mother will tell you later your connection was a little on the strange side, but I think we could make out most of what you were saying. So we definitely appreciate you being here. And Joya was one of the first entries that I saw come in, and I was quite happy with that Chatham Christian School moved so promptly. I'm still actually working with one of the high schools trying to get them to accept some money for their students, and you know, it shouldn't be that hard to give away money, I don't think, but
no, it shouldn't be.
So the other person I'd like to welcome today, we have Darren Hart. Darren's come in for a quick little visit, has a connection with Rick Badnarik. Probably Rick's arm twisting has said, come on in and pay us a visit and see what you think. So,
I had interfaced with Darren, and he struck me as a possible potential member of the Rotary Club. I'll just briefly tell you about him, and then we'll probably hopefully be able to be seeing more of him. So he's checking us out. He was born in Georgetown. After high school, he joined the Royal Canadian Navy, and then he was a constable with the York Regional Police Department. 5 years ago, he moved to Chatham. The connection with the vocation and the family. Darren's family had been in real estate, and his wife had family connections in Chatham. So that's how he ended up with us, and hopefully a potential or a real member down the road. Welcome, Darren.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick, for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to listening in and you know, seeing what the future has in store. Thank you.
Great, welcome again, Darren. And let me see. So get back to my agenda. So I advise the students that came is as long as you want to be here, you're welcome. Sometimes you find out hanging out with a bunch of old folks, it's not so much fun. Julia, I'll get back to you. Julia sent me a question on chat, so I'll respond to her. Basically, Julia, with regard to Midwood Oxley Park, it's kind of Barry and I that jump in on those kind of things. So we need to have a discussion with regard to playground equipment there. The other thing that we do at this time is usually jump into our happy thoughts. So unfortunately, I'm going to start off with a bit of a sad one. We had a indication from Tom McCarthy last week that his wife was to be in Windsor today for some surgery that has already been postponed 19 months.
Oh.
It indicates that they had a situation with medications, and it's been postponed again. So I had sent him a message this morning to say we wish him all the best, and he showed up at the Rotary office with this unfortunate news. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers. They definitely need some help moving forward, and you know, we wish them all the best. And maybe they'll get this thing taken care of sooner rather than later. But for happy thoughts, anybody want to jump forward? Just give me a wave of the hand. Oh, Andy, please.
Yes, I have a very happy thought. About an hour ago, we got hooked up to Tech Savvy, and we are now on a very fiber optic. So there's quite a difference when we push the button now on things to how fast they come in, and we're able to do that, and because of happens to be one just along our road, which is not as widespread yet, but we're happy to be on the fiber optic.
Well, and being out in the country and picking up the speed that they're delivering will be great. You're going to be like shopping like crazy here, Andy.
I see. You're going to supply the money, are you?
I got a Rotary credit card. Any other happy thoughts before we move along? Diane, please.
Finally, on the weekend, my older son Scott got engaged. So that's pretty good news.
That's great news.
That's great
Congratulations.
news. Now, when and how one pulls off a wedding right now is another whole story. But anyway, I'm really, really happy to a really lovely girl. So
Excellent. Well, congratulations to Scott.
thank you.
Dave McGuire, we'll even let you talk.
Well, all my children have got their vaccination now, and some of our grandchildren got scheduled yesterday, so they have theirs on their horizon for June. So it's all good news.
That is great news. Anyone else here with a happy thought? Trying to cover all my screens. Okay, Rick Bednarik, can you give us a bit of a Rotary minute, if you wouldn't mind, if you've got something saved up for us?
Well, I think it's appropriate. A while ago, I was talking about sort of things that keep popping up in the archives that are very important to Rotarians. And some of them were handed down from Rotary International, even from the start of the club. And one of them is classification. There's even a book. Yeah, we got it here. Yeah, the red book, Mao's red book, and it's called The Outline of Classification. So, and it's not thin. And let's see, what does it say here? First off, we'll start with how do you bring members into a Rotary Club? Yeah, think about that. How do you attract new members? Well, you do it. You don't attract members, you attract classifications. You go on and you see, okay, what classifications are there? And there's a whole pot of them here. And what would be nice to have in the club that you don't have, because you only have one. Okay, so first thing is you determine what line of business classification do you want in there. Well, maybe we don't have a current real estate agent, so let's have a look. Second, I'm reading this up, determine the concern in that line of business is the most representative and maintains the highest business standards. And third, choose from that list the executive who best measures up to Rotary's membership. So anyway, so there you go. And the club, to such an extent, Doug Sulman was our last single member of the classification committee. But in 1949, you can see that one too. I can't see myself. In 1949, there was 3 members on the club on that. And they needed that because these were 2 sheets of members. And there's the classifications off to the side. And just briefly, don't worry, I'm leading. Yeah, come on, smile there, Brett. There's certain rules.
Read those papers.
You can have only one religion category. It has to be Protestant. Well, in 1950, this is 1956, they had 3, and 2 of them were United Church ministers. So I don't know how they managed to wrangle that. And they try to cover all the bases here by 1956. Where are we? We had Kenneth Bryson, Silverwood Dairies Ice Cream, and they covered the Story, Mr. Story, who was represented ice team, and he was gone by that time. So of course you had to have somebody into ice cream. Well, that's it. So classifications, very important at one time.
Thanks, Rick. And just for our guests, our Rotary Club is getting ready to celebrate being in Chatham for 100 years. So Rick has been able to go back through the archives, and he's actually found paperwork from 1921. So he does an update for us, just a page or 2 a week. And he actually found some of our first meeting information from 1921. So I quite enjoy the few minutes that we hear that he's been able to track down. And I'm afraid if that was at my house, that would have been tossed out a long time ago. But somebody kept them, and we're now going to try and find a place in the Rotary office to keep some of our older pieces available to us. Thanks again, then, Rick. I really appreciate that.
Hey, Brett.
Allison, yes?
Can I, put it to a vote that we find someone working in the ice cream business to join the Rotary Club?
Well, I think they should have the name Story.
I think I've been thinking about starting up a side hustle. Maybe ice cream would be just the right thing for the summer. I'll think about it.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, I'm an ice cream kind of guy. Oh, and while you're here, Allison, we'll just reach out and say happy birthday to Allison coming up in a few days' time, as well as Janet McGuigan Kelly's birthday and Paul Mayrand. Both are closer to next week. Our club anniversaries were Tracy Walker, Karen McDonald, now with us for 3 years, Les Ehrman, Darlene Smith, and Diane McGuigan, soon to celebrate 29 lovely years with the Rotary Club of Chatham. It's just gone by like crazy, hasn't it? Oh, got you on mute, Diane. Diane, you're on mute.
Hold on. And I'm still only about 35, so I don't know how that I've got 29 years in.
Well, and I'm sure your just engaged son is like 22 then.
Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it?
Careful when you start going with those numbers.
Yeah, you have to be careful about your lies.
So again, now just moving on, today is primarily a classification from Chandra, but I did reach out to Dave McGuire after pulling up a couple of other Paul Harris's. There is Dave's going to talk to us a little bit about Paul Harris situations, what we can do, what needs to be done, and what some people have done. And I hadn't realized it. I had a second set of boxes which have a beautiful one little emerald in them, and Dave will make mention of that soon. So again, with regard to the students that have joined in, if you want to stay, stay. If you want to go, go. I realize it's what you would call your lunch hour. And just again, we really thank you for coming in. We're happy to be able to support you in some small way. So thanks again for joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to David McGuire with some Paul Harris Rotary Foundation information.
Thank you, Brett. We have the privilege of presenting some Paul Harris Fellows today. Jennifer and Tony Hill and Barry Fraser are all reaping awards today. And before I get too far in, I just want to say thank you, because I never want to forget to say that, and we can never say thank you too many times. Barry and Brett asked me to speak a little more than just doing the presentation of what a Paul Harris Fellow is and how we can get there through our donations. A Paul Harris is very simply a donation to the annual fund, the Polio Plus campaign, or an approved foundation grant through the World Fund. The donation is based on $1,000 US. Everybody in the world counts their dollars in US. The last little bit, it's not hurting us quite as bad as it was a few months ago. The best way I found to get people to give is to let them know how the money is handled and how it is spent. So every time you give Polio Plus, I don't have to tell your club anything about Polio Plus. You had past District Governor Keith Koch there long enough pushing polio that you know the good work has been done there, and that you get the immediate match of the Gates Foundation of 2 to 1. So every time you donate $1, it's $3. To the annual fund, all the money is held by Rotary for 3 years. They use the income off the money for the first 3 years to operate. And then after the 3 years, 50% of the money comes back to our own district in the form of district designated funds that your club has participated in often. I guess the one that affected everybody in Chatham Kent recently was when all the clubs did a district designated grant for the hospice. The other half of the money is used for global grants around the world, and every time that you donate to something, it is used in a project in one of our areas of focus, which is peace and conflict prevention and resolution, disease prevention and treatment, maternal and child health care, basic education and literacy, which is important with all the students on today, economic and community development, and the new one just coming on board that I think will be of great interest to everybody, but especially Jennifer and Tony being in the real estate business and Barry in the agri business, that environmental area of focus is going to be a big hit to everyone. Another thing, when they do have the money, the trustees have always been in the top 5% on the charity navigator, so you know everything that you donate is being used properly, and everything that they spend it on is sustainable. How you can give, the easiest way is if everybody's registered with My Rotary on the Rotary website, you just fill out your own profile, and you can do everything you want to do right on there. We always encourage everybody to join the Every Rotarian Every Year campaign, which is just a donation of something. I always compare it to a 25-year-old starting their retirement plan. It's not how much you put in, just put some in. And that's what we ask everybody in the Every Rotarian Every Year. And as you start into that, pretty soon we find people giving up to $100 a year, which makes them a sustaining member. So if you're giving $100, you are classified as a sustaining member. And even at the $100 in 10 years, you are a Paul Harris Fellow. And once you keep that going, as you with the pins we're presenting today, we start out at a Paul Harris +1, which is your pin with 1 blue sapphire, and that goes up until the Paul Harris +5, and then when you hit Paul Harris +6, you get 1 ruby, and then 2 rubies for +7 and 3 for +8. And when you hit the $10,000 mark, you are a major donor, which Barry is already a major donor, having done that some time ago. I think he did it under another name because it's not listed on the website under the same as Barry George Fraser, but but he is a major donor, and then we can go on from there. You know, a major donor +1, +2, and that. But what we always are aiming for is just to get everybody to be every Rotarian every year, to make some donation to the foundation. When you see all the great work it does, whether it's ending polio, when we stand on that finish line and we say we were all a part of doing that, or when you're in some global grant, we can stand there and smile on our face and say we were part of that also. So everything that happens, and our foundation, I always consider is the motor that drives the car, because without the foundation, we wouldn't have anything to give grants out with or do anything with monetarily. So having said that, it's my pleasure to thank Jennifer and Tony and Barry on your donations. It's an integral part of ending suffering and improving living conditions, maybe education or young people in the world. It's just a truly selfless gift that you have given. And we thank you for it. Oftentimes, in a spot like this, I will say that money might be spent in a country that you'll never visit or know about. All three of these people, I think, have been to a number of countries, but there's probably still a few that it can be said that it be spent in that they haven't attended to. And that the people that reap the rewards will be people you will never know. That's true in most cases. With Barry's case, traveled around with him enough that I think he knows everybody, every place. So, but we do thank you for the gift, and it's going to go on working for years and years and years, and you'll be able to see the rewards when you see in their Rotary magazine all the projects that have been done around the world, that you have been a part of them. And again, thank you, and it gives me great pleasure if Tony and Jennifer, if you will pin each other with your PH +1.
As soon as they get it, I got to get
okay, as soon as they get it. And Barry, your PHF +5 will be your next one will have a ruby instead of a sapphire. And Barry, it'd be remiss if I didn't add Carolyn in there, because we know anybody with partners that everything has to go through both parties to agree on all our charitable donations. So thank you, Barry, and thank you, Carolyn. So again, Tony and Jennifer, Barry, thank you, and congratulations on this Paul Harris fellow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations all. And as we like it, Barry's on mute.
There we are.
Oh,
President Brett, if I could say a couple of things, thanks to Dave. Yeah, so so congratulations to you, Jennifer and Tony, for your support towards the foundation. And I know, speaking personally, I'm really pleased that Carol and I are able to donate multiple times to the Rotary Foundation. It amounts to $1,000 for each of the levels, and to support the annual fund, the Polio Plus campaign eradication, as well as the Rotary Global Grants that, of course, we're involved with in Guatemala. And this all goes towards supporting the 7 areas of focus that you already have mentioned. And looking at the June edition of the Rotary magazine, I'm going to quote, "I'm very pleased with the seventh area of focus that comes into fully operation July 1. Protecting the environment is now an official cause of Rotary. Rotary's new cause focuses on comprehensively solving specific issues that have a detrimental effect on the environment. As people of action, let's take on projects that can make a positive, measurable, and sustainable impact on the one place that we all call home, which of course is the world." So it's because of those reasons that Carol and I continue to support the Rotary Foundation, and be active in our local Rotary Club.
Thanks, Barry. And congratulations again to all. And just while we're finishing up with Foundation, shout out to Denise. I'm not sure if she's with us yet or not. She is also one of our major donors at this point. So that concludes that side of things. And now the real business we're getting to today. I'm going to call on Tanya Sharp to introduce our guest speaker with her classification talk.
Thanks very much, Brett. So Chandra and I did a little consult ahead of time because I don't want to steal any of her thunder. And honestly, she has a lot of impressive achievements in her portfolio. So just very quickly, it's my pleasure to introduce Chandra Clarke today. Chandra is a local author, entrepreneur, and community booster. Some of you may remember that she is the founder and former owner of Scribendi. And I was very fortunate to get to know Chandra when she was a member of our library board. And then she became a board chair. And I was lucky to have her wisdom and advice for the first couple of years that I was a new chief librarian. And what else? So she has quite a bit more to say about herself, and she's going to do that now in her classification talk. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try sharing a screen here. It's a bit weird to do a PowerPoint on yourself, but I can't tap dance, so that'll have to do. Is that sharing for you?
Not yet.
Yes.
Do I have to do something? Hang on. Oh, there you go. Oh, we have you on mute.
There we go. Don't know how I got muted again, but here we go. So everything you wanted to know about Chandra Clarke, but we're afraid to ask. I was born in Cold Lake, Alberta, if you can believe it, at an Air Force base because my parents they actually met in the Air Force. My father was a Polish-Italian immigrant. His name was George Back, and he worked as an instrumentation technician, and he worked on the planes out there. My mother, some of you might know as a counselor in Thamesville before amalgamation. Her name was Nola Clark, and she worked there as a file clerk. And just trying to get the slides to work properly. There we go. My parents left the Air Force when I was about 2, and we moved to London, Ontario, settling back where my mother came from. This is a picture of me when I would have been about 5 or 6 with a fish that's almost as big as I am. And our house in the industrial East End of London, Ontario. My dad moved this way because he took a job with Union Gas, and he worked out of London servicing places like Lobo, Trafalgar, St. Jacobs, and so forth. And then that job eventually moved us to Dawn Operations Center locally. And so we settled in beautiful Thamesville. Thamesville is where I kind of got the volunteering bug because it is a very community-oriented place. I was in the Legion for a few years. I was able to be an associate member there because of my parents' service in the Air Force. I was a member of the Community Policing Committee and did some work with them. And my family was also really heavily involved in the Thamesville Historical Society. My mother helped start that. And we did the first Battle of the Thames reenactment in the 20th century, or not the 20th century, the 175th anniversary of it. So before it got moved to, I forget where the most recent one was, but this was in 1988. So my family helped start that, and it brought something like 5,000 people to Thamesville. Thamesville is also where I got my first job, and I was talking to Barry about this a few weeks ago. I worked at the Thamesville Herald, and I was sort of the dog's body there. I did everything, including working on this little finger masher. It's a plate and press, and we did job work for the local community, so stationery, business cards, that kind of thing. And we also had this device. I bring it up because it might be of interest to anybody who's ever seen one of these things. That's called a Linotype. And at any given time in the office, we had a big vat of molten lead, actually, just sitting around, and you'd pour the molten lead in the back of this machine, and you'd key in a line of text, and they would come out looking like that. You'd stack them together on the press and then ink them and run the press. So I bring this up not only because it might be of interest, but because it might help explain why I really do appreciate word processors and computers now, having worked on the very seriously old school stuff at one point. So from my job at the Herald, I ended up working at a lot of different local newspapers, including the Chatham Daily News, the Dresden Leader, Wallaceburg Courier Press, and Voice of the Kent Farmer and the Lambton Farmer and the Huron Farmer and so forth, because they were all out of the Dresden office. In fact, I did an awful lot of agricultural reporting. And this was also the time when we were just getting internet connections down this way. So I started working for a number of other publications. I did a lot of freelance work for places like Ivanhoe Broadcast News, Discovery Magazine, Popular Science Magazine. And then I eventually worked my way up to a position as a managing editor for the Spirit of Bothwell. I managed to do a little bit of traveling during that time as well, to England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. I managed to slip in a trip to Finland and Russia, and I got down to Australia as well. I still have friends in most of these places. Then three things kind of happened all at once. I started my master's in space exploration, and yes, that's a real degree. I started scribendi.com, and I'll give you a little bit more about that later. And I met this guy. He's Terry Johnson, and you may know his name. He ran for political office in 2011. And if you were listening to CBC yesterday, you might have heard him on The Current as well. He was talking about his work with the Transport Action Canada group. So a funny story about how we met. We met online before that was a thing you did. And of course, I was in Canada and he was in the United Kingdom. And so we talked for quite a while by email. And then he invited me over to come and meet him. And our first date ended up being a 10-day sailing trip in a place called the Norfolk Broads, in a boat that looks almost identical to the one shown here. So I thought this was a great idea, except, you know, I didn't know how to sail. I didn't know how to swim at the time. And we also happened to have a huge storm when we were out on the water. One of the biggest ones they had caused by, I believe it was a mini cyclone to hit the area. So nevertheless, the boat trip went okay. And we figured that if we could stand each other through 10 days in a storm, we could probably get through anything. We call it our gale force romance. And he proposed to me the day that we got off the boat at Pevensey Castle. And I accepted, and we were married 6 months to the day after we first met online. So we've since had 4 kids, 2 teenagers and 2 tweens. So I am accepting donations of wine and chocolate to help me get through these years. I have 3 sons and 1 daughter. Tiernan is the oldest. Egan in the foreground with the left picture there is my second oldest. Rodri in the background, and then my daughter Elwyn in the little yellow and blue jacket. And as you can see, we like adventuring. These 2 pictures are taken from a trip we had taken out west. We flew out to Vancouver and then took the train back to Ontario. And this was our stop in Jasper, where we went hiking in bear country and then whitewater rafting, which was a whole lot of fun. I would recommend it to anybody. We just did the baby river there, but it was still had quite a bit of action, and we got thoroughly soaked. And that particular river, I forget which one it is just off the top of my head, but it feeds from a glacier. So the water was just a couple of degrees above 0. So it was bracing, let's put it that way. We also have a couple of dogs right now. These are Nova Scotia Duck Tolling Retrievers. And that's a mouthful, so you can call them tollers for short. And so in the picture with a pair of them, the left is Sasha and the right is Ginger. And they're from the same kennel, but they're only sort of distantly related. They're a couple of years apart. And the top picture is Ginger doing what she loves to do best, which is steal shoes. And Sasha doing what she loves to do best, which is beg for food. It's always lunchtime for Sasha. I do have one other relative in the area, Aaron Back, and he works at security at Chatham Kent Health Alliance. So my career as an entrepreneur, to skip back a few years, I started a business called Scribendi, and if you don't recognize the term, it's actually Latin for the urge to write. And it was a basement startup, an English language proofreading and editing company. And we took in orders all around the world, and we then used our software that we built to pass the work to our remote editors who were also located around the world. So what would happen is that some student in Australia hurriedly finished a essay at 2 a.m., could feed it to our server, and then a wide awake editor in Canada would clean it up and make sure, you know, all the spelling and grammar errors were out of it, and then pass it back to them in time for them to roll out of bed and head to class. We did an awful lot of academic work actually for university and college students all around the world, but our biggest market was actually journal papers written by people who speak English as their second language. And so we wanted to give those authors a chance to be published based on the merits of their scientific, technical, or medical work, rather than being rejected for poor English. We also did a lot of novels, PowerPoint presentations, and I hasten to add that this one has not been passed through Scribendi, so any typos are entirely my own. Nonfiction books, business plans. By 2017, when we'd had the company for roughly 20 years, we were doing 4 to 5 million words per week in terms of throughput. We had 300 editors worldwide and about 20 local support staff. So it grew to be a pretty big company. I'm pretty proud of the fact that the company won a number of awards. We were in the Profit 500, which is like the Forbes ranking in the United States of the fastest growing companies, 4 or 5 years in a row. And I personally was also named a top woman entrepreneur, one of the top 100 several years in a row. I'm even more pleased, though, by the fact that we were able to do a lot of really good things with the company, with the staff, with the funding we got from the company. We did a lot of charitable work, donations, community work. You can see us there in participating in the Muddy River Run on the left, which was really living up to its name that day. We did a lot of tree planting. In fact, a few of the trees that you see at Midwood Oxley Park were put out by Scribendi. And on the far right there, you see where we'd done a t-shirt drive amongst our staff, and we sent 200 t-shirts overseas to people in need of good quality clothing. So that's one of my proudest accomplishments from the 20 years we spent at Scribendi. All good things should come to an end. Hopefully in a way you want them to. And we decided after 20 years that it was time to pass the baton. And so I was really thrilled to be able to pass it on to Enrico Magnani and Pat Riopel, they're shown here in the picture. She's originally from Quebec, he's originally from Italy, and they spent many years traipsing around the globe as McKinsey consultants, and they have degrees from business universities around the world. And they were looking to get into a business and settle down after all that globetrotting. And after a long negotiation, they purchased Scribendi in March of 2017. And I'm pleased to say that they have not only kept the company here in Chatham, Kent, it is still based at its location on Riverview Line. but they've also gone on to have two young children themselves. So they have settled and kept the employment and have made a real good go of it. That was one of our goals when we sold the company, was to make sure that the jobs we'd started locally stayed local for as long as we could manage. So post Scribendi, after a little while for transition, as what normally happens when you do sell a business, you have to help out the previous owners. We then took some time off, and then I dived into a lifelong project, or lifelong dream rather, and that was to get a PhD. And I did this through Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge, UK. I did most of it by distance. And I actually did my defense this week last year, almost to the day. And I did my defense by Zoom because, of course, I couldn't travel over there to do anything because of COVID, and ended up becoming Dr. Chandra Clark. I've also written a few books in the last few years. I should note that my degree, my PhD, is in creative writing. And for that, you have to put together a novel as well as a thesis. And so the novel on the left, Echoes of Another, was the novel I produced for that. It's a science fiction book set about 100 years into the future in Toronto. And it's all about a scientist who invents a device to record what we would call that sense or feeling of flow, that when you get into an activity and you're really focused and you're really concentrated and everything's to be working and everything else like that, she invents a device to record and then play back that state into your brain so that people could always be at, peak performance. And unfortunately, the device gets stolen and people find all sorts of random ways to use it, some good, some very bad. And of course, the book is all about how this upends people's lives in Toronto and the consequences of that. The middle book, Pun Dragon, is a humorous fantasy. It is about a small town reporter and may or may not be semi-autobiographical in terms of some of the experiences there. And as the cover implies, it involves a hot pink dragon. I'll let you imagine what that might be like. And our most recent book is The Entrepreneurial Parent. This is both by myself and my husband, Terry, and it's all about raising a family and running a business and not going completely bonkers while you do that, because we knew from a lot of conferences and so forth that we had gone to that there were a lot of other entrepreneurs with families trying to struggle to balance it all. So we thought we'd put together what we had learned and maybe make the journey a little easier for other people. Excuse me. Current ventures. As some of you might know, we are working on opening up a board game cafe and independent bookstore. It's called Turns and Tales, and the building that you see here is the Scotia Bank building on King Street in downtown Chatham. As of this week, the drywall is now up, and we're starting to look, starting to bug the contractors for a firm schedule so we can start hiring. The board game cafe will consist of a huge board game library, which you can rent a game for the evening and then enjoy snacks and drinks and coffee and tea. And we're looking to be a licensed place as well. And it's all you can play for a single fee. And then there'll be an independent bookstore toward the back near the river portion. And we hope to have the same sort of selection as what you'd find at the Coles, which had shut down in the mall a few years ago. So that is the plan. And my job this week actually has been to look over what they call a recommended opening store inventory. And it's a list of about 11,000 titles that I have to sort of go through and judge whether or not I think they're going to sell locally or not. And that's taken up all of my time and all of my coffee supply this week. And the other thing I'm involved with right this minute is the Butterfly Way project with the David Suzuki Foundation. This is somewhat related to our guest speaker a few weeks ago, Mike Smith of Relief. he's working to get more native trees in Chatham, Kent, and this very specifically is encouraging people to grow pollinator patches all around Chatham, Kent, to provide habitat and food for pollinators, including butterflies and bats and birds, moths and other insects. And so I'm working on getting signs out to people, encouraging people, providing tips and tricks and knowledge about what plants to grow. And that's been a lot of fun because I've been able to visit quite a few gardens in the last weeks as I've done delivered some signs. So hopefully that wasn't too fast. Hard to judge how fast you're speaking when you're online, but that's me in a nutshell. And I'll open it up to any questions.
Okay, so if you have a question for Chandra, if you can raise your hand. Chandra, if you can do the stop share, and then I can see everybody's face that's that I can see, and we'll open it up for any questions, please. Anybody? Oh yes, thank you. So I'll start with first Karen Kirkwood-White and follow with Karen McDonald.
This is just a personal question, Chandra, about the kids' names. I'm very curious about how you came up with them, who they're named after. I've met them all, but just a curiosity question.
There. Not named after anybody in particular for their first names. Tiernan and Egan are Irish names, and I have Irish background in my family. And Elwyn and Rodri are Welsh names, and there's some Welsh in Terry's background. So we picked them because we like the names. And myself, I have an unusual name for Canada. And wanted to give my kids an unusual name as well. So they have lots of fun getting people to spell them, but they're also the only one of that in their class. So it's a toss-up.
Unique. Yes, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Karen McDonald.
Yes, thank you, Chandra. It's really great to hear your background and your life. You're quite an amazing woman. I'd like to know when you think the board game shop will be opening. Do you have an idea?
Yeah, we're hoping this summer. A lot of that, of course, depends on any further lockdowns and contractor schedules. I mean, we were kind of hoping to have this open last year, but of course, the pandemic has thrown that sideways. But we're looking to do a soft open, hopefully by midsummer, and then perhaps a grand opening in the fall. Fingers crossed. We've got, paint picked out, and we've got all of the fixtures on order and everything else. So that's the goal.
Thanks. It'll be great to have a bookstore downtown. Thank you.
I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having one.
Okay.
Other questions? Barry? Barry, we got you on mute, our favorite position.
Thank you, Chandra, for sharing your background. Very impressive. I will note to the other members in the club that as soon as Chandra joined us, she came on the Environment Committee, and just so happens her new outlet on King Street is right across the street from Rotary Park by the river. And so she's showing a lot of interest there as we try to create that into a butterfly park. Chandra, why did you choose downtown?
We wanted to be a sort of keystone attraction to the downtown for things that weren't event specific. The Capitol Theater is obviously there, but that pulls people in on on an event-based basis. And we wanted to bring life back to the downtown, have a reason for people to go there on a regular basis, even if they just wanted to sit and have a chat, with both a board game cafe and a bookstore. We're hoping the seasonality of those two businesses sort of balance themselves out, and that we get, the more foot traffic downtown, the better it is for all of the other merchants. So that's the goal.
Tanya?
I'm just gonna, it's not so much a question, it's just a comment. I did not understand the whole concept of the game, the game store. And my children both live in Peterborough now, and they are huge fans of the same concept in Peterborough. So I think it's going to be something that our young people are really going to get a lot of enjoyment and value out of. And Chandra, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but she is taking pre-orders. I had to already put in a pre-order for a book that's being released in November. And I should say, if you want somebody to look at your book lists, I would happily look.
Yeah, so I had mentioned the book list on Facebook, and my issue with looking at that 11,000 title list is not only is it huge and somewhat overwhelming, but I keep finding books I want to add to my own reading pile, and that's not getting me anywhere very fast.
And all I said to her was occupational hazard.
Yeah, that's totally the case.
Anyway, I have to sign off. I'm 8 minutes late for a meeting, but thanks so much. That was really interesting. And I'm glad I was able to introduce you to Rotary and to the meeting today. And we'll see you around soon. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Any other questions here? Okay, so Chandra, just to officially welcome you to the club once again. And thank you so much for the classification talk. This is our chance to find out, the hardest thing is talking about yourself, but the best thing for us is learning what you think about yourself. And just all of the things that you were telling us, really quite enjoyed. I saw Denise earlier flash something up on there. I think she worked with your father at the Dawn Station 30 years ago. And I think, well, Denise is only 35, so I'm not sure how she did that. But, it's amazing what a small world it is. My dad was in the Air Force as well. So as soon as you flashed up Cold Lake, I knew exactly where you're heading with that. So thank you very much again for the classification talk, and thanks for joining our club. And oh yes, Barry and I are already working on environmental projects for you to take part in relatively soon. I'll have more on that in just a minute. So just moving on, next week, an interesting speaker from the Blenheim Rotary Club, Carmen Titus, will join us. Carmen is currently employed again with the Chatham Kent Legal Clinic, and her talk next week will be on sexual harassment in the workplace. So many of us have been able to leave the workplace and don't have that kind of an issue so much, but we see about it, we hear about it, and quite often we don't like it. So Carmen will give us an insight into that. Other notes going on within the club. District 6380 had a virtual conference on the weekend. Bruce, Peter, Jennifer, Barry, and myself were all in attendance. Anybody else, if I missed you, sorry about that. We're going to have a bit of a conversation after this meeting to discuss some of the things that we saw on that. The other thing is we had a brief conversation with Taylor Klucher from Ride Don't Hide. Things are going very well there. Special thanks to some people that helped us with some sponsorships, Pioneer, Tech Savvy, Main Street Credit Union, and a couple of others have all jumped in and supporting it, as well as the Rotary Clubs of Chatham Kent. We were able to get on and get some sponsorship dollars for being what they call an outside sponsor. And currently our team is about 9 or 10. We're working to pull over a couple that have signed up, and we're trying to get them on the team list. And Taylor's going to be sending me out an email. I'll send it out to everybody, both on how to go in and register, or how to go in and support somebody or our team that is registered. I sent a link out to my kids, and instead of supporting me, they're supporting our team. So that's all right. We'll take any bit of dollars we can. The other interesting news, Barry and I had a bit of a conversation this morning with regard to the Rotary Park on Thames Street. And we want to make that park look really nice again, so that Chandra's business will be able to look across and see a nice park in the neighborhood. So we are going to be working towards maybe a couple of benches and other beautification, turn it into a pollinator garden. My little bugaboo with the area is somebody previously decided to remove one of the plaques that was mounted there. I guess the cost of that material is worth ruining something for. Our plaque for 50 years of celebration for the club is still affixed, although you could tell that somebody has been trying to remove it. So we're going to be back in there and try to get some district dedicated funds that Dave was talking about, so that we can put a few dollars into that park, change it around, bring it back to its glory. And the other piece of news to pass along, in July, we're actually going to take a month off. So I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks, and we just figured for our July timeframe, and we'll stop our Zooms for the 4 weeks or so. We will be continuing our bingos. So I'll be reaching out, looking for somebody to step in and just give me a little bit of assistance in the office for a couple of weeks. So that is about it for now. Anything else for the good of Rotary? And again, welcome and thank you, Dr. Chandra. Appreciate that. I find many people with PhDs, they don't really let you know until all of a sudden you just stumble upon that little comment. But you've earned a rather worthwhile title, so congratulations to you on that. And Tina, you're making us all pretty envious with your background there, because that does not look fake at all. So Julia, if you would, I'll ask you to play us out, please.
I don't see all. You have to show all the people. Oh, here, just get this.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, everybody. I'll be sending out a note with more information on Ride, Don't Hide. They'll have some lawn signs available, so if you want one, we can hook you up. Take care, stay safe.
Welcome, Chandra. Great job. Have a good week, everybody.
Take care.
That was wonderful.
I almost hit the leave program there. So Barry and Jennifer, we're going to hang on to you for a couple of minutes here.
Good thing you reminded me, Brett.
I was so ready just to hit the button. It's like, okay, that's over. I'm going for lunch. Hang on, I better stop the recording.
Did you say you're out for lunch?
Pretty much.